A half-man, half-bull monster, locked in a giant maze, waiting for its next meal of human flesh. This is the bizarre myth of the Minotaur, an angry, savage freak of nature that endures as a timeless symbol of the beast inside all men. But beneath its story lurks a stunning reality. A real world of human sacrifice, bestiality, war, and the remains of an actual labyrinth. This is the myth of the Minotaur and the truth behind it. A heavy door clanks shut behind you. A dimly lit maze of corridors lie ahead. The stench of death hangs heavy in the air. You are trapped in the labyrinth of the Minotaur, and there is no way out.
The story of the Minotaur was a horror story for the ancient Greeks.
The labyrinth was a chamber of death. Those that got locked inside of it knew there was only one fate, and that's to be devoured by a horrible, ravenous, man-eating beast.
This half-man, half-animal would rip you piece to piece and consume your flesh.
The Minotaur is the mutant child of a human mother and a bull father.
He has the body of an enormously strong, powerful man, but then the head of a bull with horns.
On the one hand, it's part beast, and this beast is ravenous and hungry and kills and even eats the flesh of people that it has killed. On the other hand, the Minotaur is half human, and it has a kind of vulnerability from that, in which its humanity is trapped inside of its bestiality.
At its core, this myth represents the battle between reason and savagery, between order and chaos. The ancient Greeks who told the story prided themselves on being civilized.
One of the things that the Greeks really did believe in was that human reason could do a lot.
But the Minotaur was the enemy of reason, a symbol of the animal instincts trapped inside all men.
The Minotaur, the monster, was the untamable part of nature that the Greeks were trying to get a hold of. This was the one thing that they could not control.
According to the myth, this is where the Minotaur lives, on the island of Crete. At the time when the story takes place, Crete dominates the Greek world the way the Minotaur dominates the labyrinth.
In the late Bronze Age, Crete really was the most important power in that part of the Mediterranean. The places like Athens and Sparta, which in the classical period would really become the most significant powers, really weren't anything very important at all. In fact, they had to pay tribute to Crete because it was the major power in the region.
In the myth, the Minotaur was created to punish the king of Crete, Minos, after he tried to outwit a god. Every year, it was customary that King Minos sacrifice his most prized bull as an offering to the sea god, Poseidon. But one year, his herd produced a calf so beautiful, so perfect, that Minos couldn't bear to part with it. He sacrificed a lesser bull in its place. But Poseidon was watching.
Anytime you try in Greek mythology to outsmart the gods, you're going to lose. When Poseidon saw this, he said, okay, You like your bull so much? I'm going to make your woman like your bull. And so he made Minos' wife lust for the bull.
Minos' wife, Pasiphae, falls in love with the bull.
Pasiphae's desire for the bull, I think, symbolizes a kind of animalistic lust. All of us like to think of ourselves as very rational creatures, but in reality, all of us know at our core there's some piece of us that's driven by pure animalistic desire.
The queen hatches an elaborate plan to seduce the bull. She climbs into a cow costume and lingers in the pasture where it grazes, waiting for the beast to approach.
It's a very strange myth, this one, because Pasiphae essentially engages in an act of bestiality. She's in love with this bull. She wants to have sex with this bull.
It seemed to be a preoccupation of ancient Greeks and Romans as to what the proper mode of sexual behavior was. And having sex with animals was one of those taboos that got kind of richly worked out in their mythology. In the real world, we see these mythic scenes, famous scenes of ancient bestiality, are performed in the Colosseum. You would have women slaves who would be forced to copulate with bulls in order to entertain.
Often in these real-life spectacles, the ancients were acting out Queen Pasiphae's mythical encounter with the bull. In the story, it isn't long before her strategy succeeds.
The bull spies her, is overcome with amorous desire, mounts her. 9 months later, you've got yourself a Minotaur.
The birth of monsters is very often associated with sinfulness or some other kind of wrongdoing. Certainly, this is both of those things. Because Minos didn't keep his end of the bargain, because Pasiphae indulged in an unnatural desire, the child is born monstrous and deformed.
A half-human, half-bull baby boy, destined to become a horror.
He's a monster, that's how we know him. But at the same time, he seems to be a victim of his fate. And that's why I have mixed feelings about the Minotaur. I cannot really condemn him.
The Minotaur has a strange name. His father isn't Minos, but the first half of his name comes from the name Minos. The second half, Tauros, is the Greek word for a bull. So Minotaur means the bull of Minos.
To the ancients, this man-bull hybrid was a powerful and frightening concept. Bulls were a central part of Greek civilization. In fact, they were even worshipped as gods.
There were a lot of sacrifices and rituals around bull cults all across the Eastern Mediterranean.
A bull represents male virility and strength, and that's exactly what the bull was religiously. An icon representing male potency and fertility, great strength and power as well.
The memory of the power of the bull carried through into Judeo-Christian times, and we see in pictures of the Nativity the bull breathing in to the baby Jesus with its life force.
According to the myth, the tyrannical King Minos is furious when the Minotaur is born and decides to use it as a weapon against anyone who dares to challenge his power. He devises a sinister plan to build the world's most terrifying prison and makes his beastly stepson its man-eating warden. To build it, Minos turns to his resident engineering genius, Daedalus.
Daedalus is the world's most famous ancient builder. He's like Thomas Edison and Frank Lloyd Wright rolled into one. He's able to construct beautiful monuments, and he's able also to construct flying machines, wonders of ancient technology.
Daedalus makes plans for a prison with no barred cells, just a massive, winding maze. It would be so vast, so impossible to navigate, that even he could barely make it out alive. And in its heart would lie the Minotaur, waiting for its prey.
It was a series of passages and stairways. There is some sort of mystical or strange effect inside the labyrinth that so confuses those who walk through it that they don't know where they are in a short time.
Dark, disorienting, deadly. This mythical labyrinth would be terrifying. But is it more than just a myth? Today, there's an underground maze on the island of Crete with an eerie resemblance to the labyrinth of the Minotaur, the Cave of Minotaur. It's an ancient underground quarry that, according to local lore, may have inspired the myth. Winding passageways stretch for over 2 miles in no particular order. In fact, most people who dare to enter run a cable with them to make sure they don't get lost. The same tactic will prove crucial for the Minotaur's victims later in the myth. Chisel marks found along these tunnel walls prove the caves are man-made, that they were dug with ancient tools. For centuries, visitors who came to explore this place were convinced they had found the home of the Minotaur, and many of them left their mark. Today, explorers still take on the challenge of navigating the labyrinth. Their objective is to reach this central room, where it is said the Minotaur once dwelled.
They come here to beat their fears, and if they win, they accomplish the mission. They write their names on it and go out happy.
It would be very nice if it were the labyrinth. I mean, everybody wants to know where the idea of the labyrinth came from. And when you see caves like this, right away the idea must have come to the people that this might have been the lair of the Minotaur.
An ancient man-made maze on the same island where the myth is said to have taken place. It's the perfect candidate for the Minotaur's labyrinth in every way but one. Most experts think the myth is older than the cave.
It was worked very late in Greek Roman times, and there are recorded visits by many pilgrims during this period. But the actual myth of a labyrinth and a Minotaur came much, much earlier.
If Minotaur isn't the place that inspired the myth of the labyrinth, what is? The hunt for clues leads back to the myth. With his horrifying maze complete, Crete's king Minos shifts his focus and hunts for its first victims. It's mealtime for the Minotaur. According to an ancient myth, the island of Crete is home to a half-man, half-bull monster who hungrily patrols a dark labyrinth. The labyrinth itself is so confusing, even its builder can barely find the way out. Inside, the Minotaur awaits its first victims, hungry for human flesh. Meanwhile, 200 miles north in a small city-state called Athens, athletes have gathered from all over the Mediterranean to compete in a series of sporting challenges. It's an early precursor to the Olympic Games. Among the competitors is Prince Androgeus, the son of Crete's king Minos, and the half-brother of the Minotaur.
Minos' son, Androgeus, won every contest, running, throwing, singing. He was a star. And it so upset a number of the Athenian youth that they got into a drunken brawl and went and killed him.
The son of a king, murdered in cold